Hey everyone, today we're tackling a really big question for anyone out there trying to do good in the world. How do we actually measure that good? We're going to dive into a new system called the Common Framework, which is a pretty powerful way to make sense of all the different ways organizations track their positive impact. So how do we solve this big measurement puzzle? Let's get into it.
So, let's start with the central challenge here. You've got dozens, maybe hundreds of organizations, all working on similar problems, right? But they're all measuring their success in slightly different ways. It creates this huge puzzle. How can anyone, a funder, an investor, you, me, see the total collective impact of all that work?
I mean, think about it. Let's say you're trying to figure out the total impact of a group of organizations all fighting food insecurity. How in the world do you add up all their different results? That right there is the problem we're trying to solve.
Okay, so maybe one organization reports that they served 10,000 hot meals. That's awesome, right? A really clear, specific number. You know exactly what that means.
But then the next organization says they handed out 500 food vouchers, which is also great, but how do you add that to the 10,000 meals? They're just not the same thing. And to make it even trickier, a third group reports they helped build 3 community gardens. This is an incredible long-term solution. But again, you can't just add 3 gardens to 500 vouchers and 10,000 meals. You've got this classic apples to oranges problem.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. This isn't a new kind of problem. In fact, if you look back, the world of finance faced this exact same challenge about 100 years ago. And the solution they came up with, well, it holds a pretty critical lesson for us today.
So a century ago, it was kind of the Wild West of bookkeeping. Every company did it differently, which made it impossible for investors to compare them. And the solution wasn't to force every single company to do things the exact same way. Instead, they developed flexible principles-based standards, things like GAAP and IFRS, that created consistency but still allowed for all the different contexts of different businesses.
This quote from the IFRS just nails it. Comparability is not uniformity. The goal isn't to make everything identical. It's about being smart with how we compare things. It's about making sure that when you look at 2 similar things, they look similar. And when you look at 2 different things, they look different.
So that brings us right back to the solution for impact measurement. It's built on that exact same philosophy. Let's take a look at the 3 core pillars that make this new framework so powerful. You can think of the common approach to impact measurement as being for the social sector what those big accounting standards are for the financial world. A shared, structured, but still flexible way to finally see the whole picture.
Okay, pillar number 1. This is a total game changer. It's called construct-based equivalence, which is really just a fancy way of saying we should group things by the idea they measure, not by their specific units. So instead of asking, are these numbers the same, we start asking, are they measuring the same kind of good?
It's like you're creating these big thematic buckets. You've got all these different, specific activities at the bottom. The meals, the vouchers, the gardens, and you group them all under one shared theme at the top. Something like improving access to nutritious food.
The second pillar is called bounded flexibility. My favorite way to think about this is flexibility with guardrails. It lets organizations use their own professional judgment and account for their unique situations, but they have to do it within a clear and systematic set of rules. It's that perfect middle ground between a total free-for-all and a rigid one-size-fits-all approach. And this last one, documentation and verifiability, well, this is the glue that holds the whole thing together. Every single choice, every assumption you make, every reason why you group something a certain way, it all gets documented. That transparency is what builds trust and lets other people actually review and believe the final numbers. Okay, so that's the big idea. That's the why. But how does it actually work? Well, the framework is a really practical 6-step process that can take you all the way from that messy, diverse data to some really clear big picture insights.
Here it is, the 6-step roadmap. First, you group your metrics by theme, just like we talked about. Then you harmonize the units so you can actually compare them. From there, you develop a main headline indicator, aggregate all the results to get that portfolio view, document every single decision you made, and finally, you visualize and communicate the results so you can share the story of that collective impact.
Let's actually walk through this with our food example. Step 1 is to group by theme. So we create that conceptual bucket, the theme, and we'll call it access to nutritious food.
And boom, just like that, our 3 totally different metrics,
Meal served, food vouchers, garden participants are now neatly organized under one single meaningful theme. We've officially taken the first huge step from chaos to clarity.
So why does all of this really matter? What's the big deal? Well, adopting this kind of common framework has some pretty profound benefits for everyone who's trying to make a positive impact out there.
For nonprofits, it's a huge relief because it actually decreases their reporting burden and lets them use the metrics that make the most sense for them. For funders, it's a game changer. They can make much smarter decisions because they can finally see portfolio-wide results. And for everybody, it builds trust through that radical transparency. It means we can finally have a real, data-backed conversation about what's actually working to solve some of the world's biggest problems.
And that leaves us with one final, and I think pretty important question. Just imagine for a second. Imagine a world where we could accurately and reliably see the combined, collective impact of all the different efforts aimed at solving a single problem. What new possibilities would open up? What could we achieve if we could finally see, at scale, what's truly working?